Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hyperconscious Podcast is proudly sponsored by our friend and mentor, David Meltzer of the Playbook Podcast. He was kind enough to join us on episode 144 and 135.
Folks, it has become Kevin and I's mission in life to help you realize that the life of your dreams is right on the other side of you becoming the greatest version of yourself. Let us help you do that.
I rarely do these things twice in such a short amount of time, but you guys impress me. I believe in people that provide value and of our service. You two guys are on your way to huge fulfillment, purpose, and profitability, and I look forward to helping you both.
We appreciate that more than you know. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest Small Talks episode where Alan and I sat down and talked all about mindset. Today, for episode number 205, we are going to do a Scratching the Surface episode on finding yourself.
So before we do that, before we jump into this episode, I want you to go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com and click on join #HyperConsciousNation.
Why?
The group is growing.
Why would they do that?
Because you want to be in a community. I like that you did that. You want to be in a community of like-minded people to grow and evolve and to chase your goals and dreams together and to hold yourself accountable and to basically anything you're going through, we want you to share it in that group and get support, feel supported, all of the above.
Also, we are a little bit over a week away.
Yes.
A week and 3 days away, or a week and 1 day if you're listening to this, from our event, Your World Within Live, where we will be interviewing Catherine Minnie but Mighty Nash on stage live in front of a live studio audience.
Catherine.
Eddie Pinero will be speaking, Terrence McMahon, Phil Krismanich, Wade Waddick, Evan Carmichael is going to be there, Brian Breach is speaking as well. We have a full day of speakers. It's going to be next level. Hopefully that hurricane goes on. Go on.
Pass right on by.
Go on, hurricane.
And Monica Reyes as well will be speaking.
Yes.
All right, so I have a bunch of questions prepped for Kevin here. The first one, you and the listeners have heard me talk a lot about how noisy our lives have become because of smartphones and social media.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe one of the greatest challenges is staying focused and grounded amongst the chaos. Question for Kevin. For you, Kevin, how do you stay so grounded in who you really are? And how do you re-find yourself after a growth spurt where the snow globe was shaken?
Yeah, so we've been going through a lot of this. So just behind the scenes, Alan and I were talking a lot about this today because we have both been going through a lot of different things and a lot of growth and a lot of realizations and a lot of emotions and reality has come to the surface in a lot of arenas. But so I think the thing for me that I always say is I'll have a dark moment in bed where I'll either be really high mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or I'll be really low and I'll reflect. I'll look back on when we were flying out of Arizona. I'll look back on the Snapchat when we were at Steve Ryder's house. I'll look back on our episode with Danielle Murr. I'll look back on the things that at one point I didn't know were possible. And for me, that really reinstills the belief. That's what I do when I'm low. When I'm really high, I do the same, but with a different perspective. A different perspective of, don't forget, like, none of this came by accident. This only came because you worked.
Right.
And you're doing the things behind the scenes. So like right now I'm struggling a little bit. So this is a very good episode because I haven't been doing my habits because I've been all over the place. Like so our house is getting renovated. We went to Toronto for 3 days. Then I was back at Taryn's for a week. Then we went to Florida for 4 days. We're getting ready to go back to Florida next week.
Yep.
So I've been all over the place and
nomadic.
Very nomadic. And what you and I came up with yesterday is I expected to live with Taryn for 2 weeks, and it was supposed to be like a 2-week vacation.
Right.
So I was like, I'm not going to do my habits. This is going to be fine.
Yeah.
We're going on week 5 now, and
Yeah.
I haven't done my habits in a dog's age.
In a dog's age.
And so when I feel lost, it's because I'm not doing the things that are familiar to me.
Mm.
So that's the way I get back. I search for perspective.
How do you get grounded? Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
you search for perspective.
I got to find some sort of perspective of like, it's fine. It's okay that you feel this way. It's not the end of the world, but let's get back on the track of the things that got you there in the first place.
Fire.
What about you? What do you do?
So I was actually just thinking that. So for me, when I feel on point and aligned, it's when I know. Think of the chess analogy. So if I'm thinking 10 moves ahead into the future, I need to make sure that this move is congruent with the end goal of checkmate. So if the end goal is my greatest level of contribution and dreams and growth and purpose and mission, I need to make sure that my daily actions are congruent. So my micro needs to be aligned with my macro. So my day-to-day life needs to be aligned with the decade. And for me, when I don't feel like I'm aligned, I do one of two things. I actually do two things, not one of two. I do two things. Number one, I reconnect with my deepest why, which is my purpose prayer, and my mission. So that's the macro, legacy. And then I make sure I redesign my system of success. I was talking to Kevin about it. I think about it like a runway. I want to create a new runway, pave a new runway. Because whenever you focus on daily habits for long enough for the compound effect to pay off, you start to soar like a plane. And then you get up to this new level you've never been to, and all of a sudden there's all these other opportunities.
The air gets thin up there.
Yeah, and there's so many opportunities that come your way, and you're like, and now you're trying new things. Now you're exploring. You're up in the air, and you're like, oh, what's this like? What's that like? What's this like? And then eventually you lose your focus, which got you up into the air in the first place, and you start to like slowly crash. And then, like Danielle Murr said, you got to be willing to crash the plane a few times.
Yeah.
When the plane crashes, it's time to pave a new runway. And the new runway is going to be more of what you know you do want based on that expansion phase, and then less of what you now know you don't want. And I think each time you get a little bit better, and then you soar a little bit higher.
Speaking of planes and chess, I played chess on the plane back from Florida. I got slaughtered. Man,
Were you playing a person?
no, I was playing the computer on the plane. I got demolished.
Well, dude, the
I was like,
algorithms are
what does
dialed
this
in.
thing do? What is this? The rook? What does this thing do? And the horse does the L. It took me a minute, man. I almost won Texas Hold'em, though. I was doing fairly well.
What was I doing?
Sleeping.
Sleeping.
As always.
So second question. All right, so real quick story. When we went to HPA Live, and you've probably heard this story before, but I reached out to Anthony Trucks because he's a successful speaker. He spoke on Brendan Burchard's stage. Wow. Speaking of speaking, I need to learn that. And I reached out to him because I got to meet him, and I said I wanted to learn from him because he's much farther along in his speaking career. And I remember saying, I feel really weird. And he said, of course you do. You went to a full immersion event, and you transformed, but you went back to an old environment that hasn't changed. So you're not out. The new you has not. It's natural that you're going to feel weird. And so my question for Kevin is this: after growth spurts, like after those phases where you're taking off into the air, you're at a new level, and there's all this new opportunity, your snow globe gets shaken from new experiences, new conversations, new people. Okay, how do you, Kevin, quickly get back into certainty to start taking action again to create that new runway?
So for me, it depends. Like after that event, I felt better about myself. So for me, it was like, okay, what habits do I have to add into my life so I can continuously feel this way?
Right.
So it was for me, it was a little bit different. I think it depends. It depends because you're not going to feel that way forever. Like you didn't feel the way you felt for very long.
Nope.
I didn't feel the way I felt for very long. Very quickly, reality comes back and it's like, yo, guess what? Back to work.
Yeah, right.
You know, you're not
Back
God's gift to the earth because you attended a networking event. Strong work.
Back to your end of Drive to 5.
Yeah. So I think it depends on like if your snow globe has been shaken, but you feel better. And you have like a better light of like, oh, that could be a possibility.
Right.
You have to figure out, why do you feel good? Well,
Right.
you feel good because you got out of your comfort zone and it went better than you expected.
Right.
What does that mean? Keep getting out of your comfort zone.
Exactly.
Keep getting out of your comfort zone. If you are on the other side, if you're on the higher side of Drive to 5, like Alan,
Right.
you were very like, What does this mean? I'm not nearly as good as I have to be.
Right.
Okay, what does that mean? Go out and do it more.
Exactly.
You need to speak more.
practice.
You need to whatever more. So I think that's what it is. I think it's number one, understand why you feel the way you feel, and number two, when you get that answer, then we reverse engineer how to get more of that answer.
Right.
That makes sense?
Really good.
appreciate that.
Really good. Fire.
It's because I'm drinking Sprite full calorie right now.
Full calorie Sprite. For the
Zero regrets.
All right, so I've said before, we're scared to make the wrong decision, so we make no decision, which is actually the worst decision. Because when you stay on the fence, you basically take no action, get no feedback, and get no growth. Question for Kevin. What do you do when you don't know what the right decision is for you? Again, this is finding yourself. So knowing what the right decision is for you, what do you do?
Honestly, so this will be I think this will be good for the listeners. It usually takes me 3 or 4 days. Honestly, I revert to when I have uncertainty, I don't take action. That's why I designed the confidence conundrum, because that was my life for a long time.
Right.
It usually takes me a couple days.
What's an example?
What's an example?
Where you sat on the fence for too long because of the confidence conundrum.
So creating my first online training program. Yeah. So what happened was we left the last day of Brendan Burchard's event. He gets up on stage and says, guys, I have this program that if you purchase, I guarantee within a month, you'll have your online training program or your own online business. And I usually am like, get out of here with that crap. I'm not buying that.
Right.
But I told Alan, I was like, dude, I'm buying it. I'm buying this. Before we leave this event, I have to buy it. I think it was like $2,000.
Yeah.
It was expensive. T-Mac ended up buying it,
Yeah.
luckily, and I ended up returning mine. And T-Mac let us use his, so we're super grateful for that. But
T-Man.
it took me like 3 weeks before I even looked at it. The luster of the event had worn off, and I was like, oh, no. Now, the way I got over that, we were going to Florida to live there for a month, and I said I would finish my program down there, so I finished it before we even went.
Yeah.
So I needed necessity.
Great program.
It was, yeah, I appreciate that.
Where can people get
People,
it?
yeah, you want to head over to hyperconsciouspodcast.com/programs? It can be yours.
It can be yours.
It can be yours.
It's on the courses tab.
I think it's on the courses or programs.
Programs.
I think it's
There's
programs.
a tab called programs.
Yeah.
We should probably.
It's the Hyperconscious Mindset program.
Right.
It's honestly, it's what I learned over 2 years crammed into an hour and a half.
It's fire. I was in my room in Florida when he did it all in one take and then broke it up into modules. You did a great job, man.
I appreciate that.
I was very impressed.
But again, the only reason I was able to do that, one of my clients wanted to get her personal training certifications.
Yeah.
And I said, cool, let's book it today. When are you taking the test? Right. Because if you don't book when you want to take the test, you're not going to have a reason to study. So when there's uncertainty, create necessity, and then you will create certainty.
Yeah, that's Brendan Burchard stuff right there.
Yes, I just got a text message from Mark Metry, the one and only.
What do we got?
You trying to do leg day tomorrow? Ha ha!
Yay or nay?
That's a yay.
On the leg day?
Yeah, I'll do leg day with Mark
last
Metry.
night with Big Nate. He did
More
upper body.
Oh,
Yeah, luckily.
right.
Goddamn. Okay, next question. You and I have talked a lot about how when we spend too much time with other people, we start to lose ourselves a little bit. So we need silence between the notes to find ourselves, in my opinion, stay grounded in who we are. Question for the listeners. How can the listeners keep a better pulse on their ratio of solitude versus social time to ensure that they stay grounded in who they really are?
So we always say, well, it's not our quote, but it's something that we say and we preach about. You are the sum average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. When people hear that, I think they think of the long term, but if you hang out with somebody for 2 weeks, you will act differently. You will most likely act closer to them.
Yes, 100%.
And they will most likely act closer to you.
Start noticing that. You'll start saying things they say.
Right.
Like I say things you say all the time.
And
right.
Look at the way I do text messages now, man.
Yeah.
I space everything out and I do 7 or 8 in a row. Why? Because that's how you text.
Right.
And I have exchanged hundreds of thousands of text messages with you.
Right. Hundreds of thousands?
Yes. Dude, we have in the pictures, like screenshots, we have over 1,000.
I know. Every time I look for something,
It's unreasonable.
Like, why even bother?
It's unreasonable.
Yeah.
But so I think most people, I'm convinced that when the people that struggle to sleep, do you ever get, you don't struggle to sleep really, but I do. Sometimes I struggle to fall asleep. That's when I have my best thoughts. Why? Because that's the first time I have solitude for the entire day.
I know. So for me, it's in the shower. Because
Right.
I'm alone in the shower thinking. Yeah.
Right. So
Those are important.
yeah, I think you have to find some silence.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard sometimes because when you get overwhelmed, you want to spend time with people. You want that energy. You want somebody to lean on. You don't want to be alone. But when you're alone, you usually have your best thoughts.
That's when you have your breakthroughs.
Yeah, yeah.
Nate and I were talking about that last night. Basically, I asked him, your dreams kind of whisper. And he said it's kind of like a light in the back of your mind. But unless you're in the dark, in emotional pain, you can't really see it. And I think that if we consistently are in pain and we go directly to ease that pain with social life, Netflix, distractions, vices, I think we won't see that true north that I often talk about.
You got to schedule it.
Yeah.
That would be my answer, is schedule it. So again, I have like such an overview of how important my habits were before versus like what I'm doing now. When I was at home, I would literally go into my room like an hour and a half before I went to bed. I would do my flashcard for the night, like what am I grateful for? I would do my journaling. And then I might watch something. But again, that's because I've spent all day either with you or maybe I spent the night with Taryn, whatever it was.
Or with Matt.
I would schedule solitude. If you schedule your gym sessions, you schedule massages, you schedule hair, nails, all of those things. Why
You schedule your nails?
Yeah, I schedule my nails. They're clearly, I bite them off. Why wouldn't you schedule time with yourself?
Yeah.
You schedule it with others.
A lot of successful people do that. The LinkedIn CEO says he has 3 hours marked out, I think 3 hours? Don't quote me on that, but I know Bill Gates takes like solitude weekends.
Yeah.
Like by himself, like in the desert, I think in some trailer or something. And again, don't quote me on any of that.
Right. Especially the second one.
Just like go out into the desert looking for Bill Gates.
The Breaking Bad
This
trailer.
must be Bill. All right, so last question. I think last question. We're going to go back here. Hold on.
Can we? Well, all right. I want to talk about relationships too.
Yeah. Do you want to do that? We have time. This
Yeah,
will be
yeah.
the last question.
Okay.
And then we'll segue.
Don't forget, we got a dramatic reading today too.
Ah, strong work. Strong work. Okay. On this podcast, we've talked a lot about the 4 tendencies. The biggest group is obligers,
Yes.
which a lot of our listeners, including you, fall into that category. Lately, you and I have had to work on a large team for Your World Within Live, and we haven't always agreed with some of the team's approach. This is why collaboration can sometimes be difficult. Question for Kevin. How do you know when to put your foot down regarding something that's not congruent with your heart versus knowing when to step up because that's just something outside your comfort zone?
You got to get very good with your emotions and what they actually mean. Like, again, Alan and I had a little thing before this podcast where I got very insecure, and when you're insecure, you project insecurity towards somebody else to get it away from you. Like it's like dirt. You want to get it off of you, and you don't care where it goes. And luckily for both of us, that's something that I am very familiar with. I know how it feels to be insecure. I know how I project, and I know how to quickly get back and take credit for what I've done.
Right.
So for me, it's just been practice. It's been practice. I've been insecure a lot, but I think you have to understand, like, what situations do you thrive in and what situations do you feel like you struggle in? For me, like certain masterminds, like we got off the phone with Dave Meltzer.
Right.
I'll just talk about it.
No.
And Dave is the most intelligent person and the most successful person I've ever physically spoken to with my voice. And sometimes that's intimidating when you're a dude trying to come up in the game. Like, he has all the results. What he does on a daily basis is what I want to do.
Right.
So sometimes I shell up a little bit and I revert. And I know that. I know in certain business meetings I need to be, I need to speak up more.
More assertive.
I need to be more assertive, as Alan said. I need to be better. I just need to be better.
Yeah.
But there's other things, like where do you thrive and where do you struggle? If you find yourself really, really struggling in an area that you struggle in, start asking yourself, okay, is this because I don't believe in what I'm doing, or am I just getting self-conscious? Am I getting insecure?
Right.
If you ask yourself that and you practice that long enough, you will get the answer.
So what happens when you have, okay, how do you know when it's not congruent with your heart versus when you're just being insecure?
I think you have to ask yourself, would I regret doing this? Is the reason I'm not doing this because I'll regret it after I do, or because I'm afraid of doing it just for the performance?
Perfect. Yeah, man. That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will I regret not doing this because I didn't step up? Or am I just, what did you say? I'm scared?
Yeah.
I'm scared to do this?
Are you scared to do it? What is Alex Hinkle's thing? Swinger.
Oh, yeah. So basically, Alex Hinkle, one of my clients, came up with this that I thought was absolute fire. if it's not congruent with your morals, you'll be questioning whether or not you should even swing. If it's something you're afraid of, you're going to question whether or not you can hit the ball. And you have to figure out which one that is.
I know I can tell. I can just tell when I'm insecure because I won't have a point. I'll just keep searching for a point. And I know I'm like, shit, you're being insecure. That's why you can't find a point, because there is no point. This point has been created in your brain, and now you're looking for something to lock it down with.
Yeah.
You're looking for
Even
something
though
to make it
makes
right.
No sense sometimes.
Right.
It's like-
But that's how I know. I've done it enough. I've been
Interesting.
insecure enough where I know my reactions. That's one of my weaknesses.
Mhm.
That's one of my weaknesses.
It's
If you
all
can,
of our weaknesses.
again, if you can turn one of the greatest strengths is knowing your greatest weakness.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer of that, because when you know it, you can change it, and you can turn a weakness into a strength with the right amount of practice.
It's funny because one of your biggest weaknesses is not being assertive enough in certain meetings, and mine is sometimes being too assertive.
Yeah, well, drive to
Makes
five.
sense.
You and
Yeah,
I,
drive to
we're the
five.
opposite on everything.
Basically,
Pretty
yeah.
much.
And we make each other better.
Yeah, you want to talk about
And
relationships?
I think I make you funnier.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's what it is. That's why I'm here, man. That's why I hang out with you. I'm trying to get funny.
Yeah, exactly.
I just, that's it.
All right, relationships.
So I think when Alan and I first discussed this, and we said, let's do an episode on finding yourself, it's because somebody reached out and they asked us about it. And my initial reaction was to go to relationships, because I'll never forget this whole journey of personal development for me started after I got my heart broken.
Mm-hmm.
Because for the first time ever, I was like, well, what's the common denominator between all of my failed relationships? I'm one of them.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time that I
One
take a
of
look
them.
in the mirror.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time that I take a look in the mirror. And I remember, I started doing Facebook videos. Before Facebook Live was a thing, I started doing videos on Facebook.
I remember.
And my Instagram got catered to, one of the things was I never lose, I either win or I learn. I was really focused on positivity and trying to get better, and I was trying to perpetuate that and share that with others.
Mm-hmm.
So I think after a relationship, especially if it's one of the first times you quote unquote feel like you're in love, maybe the first time you've lived with somebody, if it's the first big relationship where you have the heaviest feelings ever, there is a good chance, and if you lack confidence,
Right.
this is on the low end of drive to five usually.
Yep.
If you lack confidence, you're going to try to fit the mold of what that other person wants.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, it's natural that you're going to lose yourself. And it's great. It seems like it's going great until the end of it, and then you look back and say, who the hell was I before this?
Right.
I have no idea who I was. And then you got to go back, and you got to figure out who you were. So for me, that's why I wanted to talk about this, because when my girlfriend left me, and everything seemed like it was terrible, shit was hitting the fan, I was broke, I was depressed, this was the first time I had ever lived alone, and I had a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house by myself.
Up in New Hampshire.
Up in New Hampshire. And my bills were $2,000 a month. I didn't know who I was anymore. I thought I was a terrible boyfriend. I thought I was so insecure. I didn't think I had any confidence, because that's what heartbreak will do. It'll really put a spotlight on all of your insecurities and your quote unquote failures. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to say, who am I? Who am I really?
Some people, I think, point to the other person.
I think I've done that enough.
And I think some people look at themselves and go, what can I improve?
Yeah.
And it's hard to look at that.
Yeah, it's not easy, but that's the only way. That's
How did
the
you
only
find
way.
yourself again? Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
My bad.
No, you're good. You're good. I found myself by realizing the person that I had become wasn't the person who I was in the beginning of the relationship. What got me the girl versus what kept the girl were two different things. The second I got the girl, I just started doing whatever she wanted. And it wasn't even her fault.
That's such a good point, man.
I just
think
didn't have the
that's
discipline.
I think that's a mistake.
It is.
Because it's like you stopped. You always say when you stop doing what got you to the dance, you don't get to keep dancing.
It's all discipline.
Right.
It was that's why I say it wasn't her fault. She wanted to spend more time with me. Yeah, that's normal.
Right.
But somebody has to be disciplined enough to say, yeah, we're going to spend time after I do this. I didn't have a purpose either. You want to find yourself? Find something greater than yourself. And you'll figure out very quickly what matters to you. You know what I mean?
That was fire.
Well,
that was so
this
good.
Sprite, man, I might have to
You wanna
screw the coffee. I'm going to be drinking full-calorie Sprite during these.
If you want to find yourself, find something greater than yourself. That's
because then you'll figure out.
It's going to be Kevin's meme tonight.
Right. No, I already did a video. I already did my Instagram post.
So one of the things is, how do you prevent discipline?
Discipline.
Staying true to. That's the thing. Like, how do you stay true to your own path when you don't have it carved out in advance?
Well, then that's when the problem occurs.
Right.
That's
Because
when the
then you'll
problem
just start
occurs.
fitting.
Yeah.
Whereas right now you can't fit. You can collaborate,
Yeah.
but you can't stray too far from your path.
I-
Otherwise, you won't.
then you have to find somebody who fits on your path.
Right. And
That's why
a whole
Tara
nother
and I
challenge.
are so good together, because she
Right.
understands why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I understand what she's doing and what her future looks like. We were talking about that last night in bed. Like, what is your dream life? I want to know, because I want to help you get it. Like,
It's
I
awesome.
won't stop. I have to. I have
The
to.
whole is greater than the sum
That's
of the
some
parts.
would say.
Some would say.
Some would say. You want to do your dramatic reading? We're
Yes.
at 20 something
Oh,
minutes.
Look at that. That flew by.
Yeah,
by.
it always does.
All right, so I think that everyone will like this. I hope that they will. Let me find it. Hold on. All right, here we go. So this is from Matthew McConaughey's speech.
Okay.
Again, Houston commencement address, I believe in 2015. Here we go. From can to want. In 1995, I got my first big paycheck as an actor. I think it was about $150,000. The film was Boys on the Side, and we're shooting in Tucson, Arizona. Tucson. And I have this sweet little adobe guest house on the edge of the Saguaro National Park. The house came with a maid, my first maid. It was awesome. So I've got a friend over one Friday night, and we're having a good time, and I'm telling her about how happy I am with my setup. The house, the maid, especially the maid, I'm telling her she cleans the place after I go to work, washes my clothes, the dishes, puts fresh water by my bed, leaves me cooked meals sometimes, and she even presses my jeans. My friend, she smiles at me, happy for genuine excitement over the luxury service I'm getting, and she says, well, that's great if you like your jeans pressed. I kind of looked at her, you know, that dumb look you get when someone just told you the truth that you hadn't realized yet. I hate that line going down my jeans, and it was then, for the first time, that I even noticed it. I've never even thought about not liking that starched line down the front of my jeans because I'd never had a maid to iron my jeans before. And since she did now for the first time in my life, I just liked it because I could get it. I never thought about if I really wanted it. Well, I did not want it there, that line. And that night I learned something. Just because you can? Nah, it's not good enough reason to do something. Even when it means having more. This is my favorite part. Be discerning. Choose it because you want it. Do it because you want to. I never had my jeans pressed again. I think one of the
Matthew McConaughey.
I even sounded like I'm a little bit during that.
Strong work.
One of my favorite speeches. I think one of the reasons why people lose themselves is because of you're straying away from your why. You're straying away from doing it because you want to do it. You're doing it for someone else or something else that isn't aligned with your highest core values. And I think that spoke to that.
Yeah, I would say that's the thing, man. It's like at the time when I traded in quote unquote myself and my dreams for a woman, it's because that was my macro goal. I didn't have a bigger goal.
Right.
My goal was to be happy in the moment. You know, and if you think dating somebody is going to be your macro, your end goal, your everything, there can be a person out there that means the world to you, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to still change the world.
Right.
Right?
In your own unique way.
In your own unique way, whatever that means. And I guarantee your relationship, I shouldn't say I guarantee, but your relationship will most likely be better because of it, because of the person you're going to have to be in order to accomplish your mission. I think that'll help you in your relationship, honestly.
I do too. As long as you have congruent
Yeah.
missions
Yeah.
and congruent goals. Because I remember goals in conflict cause conflict.
Yeah.
So, but that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, that's an interesting title too. You think we should get out of here? I think we're about against it.
I think it's about time.
All right, man. You want to say anything?
I want to do a 10-second blip, both of us?
Yeah.
Should we? Finding yourself?
You already know what mine's going to be.
Yeah, because it's
What is it?
fire. I know it.
If
Go
you
ahead.
want to find your... Wait, what is it?
If you want to find yourself, find something greater than yourself.
That's my 10-second blip. Now you go.
Okay. My 10-second blip on finding yourself.
I jeffed you.
Know who you are, know who you aspire to be, and don't let anything antagonize that.
I like that. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Speaking of Anthony Trucks, up next, we are going to be speaking with him again for round 2. He was recently on a private jet with Brendan Burchard, Trent Shelton, Dean Graziosi.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a lot to talk about. He is also the nicest dude ever of all time.
Oh, he's awesome.
Every time we send him a message, I flex on him, and his guns are bigger than mine. So we hope you will hope you'll enjoy that episode as well, and we will talk to you on Sunday.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for listening to another episode of the Hyper Conscious Podcast.
Going hyper-conscious will absolutely change your life, because if you understand why something is the way it is, now you have the power to change it. If you going hyper-conscious with us has changed your life in any way, please share this episode with one of your friends, because the more people that go hyper-conscious, the better this world's going to be for everybody.
And if you would kindly leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would help us make more people hyper-conscious, and we would be greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Bye.